Councilmember Rowe, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to a regular City Council meeting of October 14th. I apologize for the delay. Your time is valuable to me as well. We had a work session and an exec session that kind of tarried, so apologize again for making you wait. At this point, Pastor Lynn Winters is not here that I can see, so Pastor Victor Hardy, would you please lead us in our invocation, and I'll do the Pledge of Allegiance.
Mayor, I'll do roll call. So,
Thank you. My
um,
mind is still on our exec session. Excuse me.
Mayor
Clerk, please
Harkey,
take the roll.
Mayor
Here.
Harkey,
Here.
Vice Mayor Stewart,
Here.
Councilmember Harris,
Here.
Councilmember Lopez,
Here.
Councilmember Rowe, are you on the phone?
Here. Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Ellis,
Here.
Councilmember Orlando, Councilmember Orlando. We have a quorum.
Thank you, Clerk. Next on our agenda is an invocation by Pastor Victor Hardy and then our Pledge of Allegiance. Pastor.
Let us pray. Not another second or another minute, no.
not an hour or another day, but at this moment, with our arms outstretched, we need you to make a way as you have done so many times before. Through a window or an open door, we stretch our hands to thee. Come rescue us. We need you right away. We need you now. We need you now. We need you now. We need you now. Not another second or another minute, no. Not an hour or another day. But Lord, we need you right away. And all those in favor, in Jesus' name, say, Amen.
Would you please join me in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
With liberty and justice for all.
City manager, could you do a little research for me and see if any other city has a singing invocator? So, invocationist, invoker. Council, we've got a consent agenda, and there are quite a few cards actually on two of these items, item number 4 and item number 5. And then we also have some unscheduled appearance speakers and as well as some other cards, comment cards as well. And we've also received a couple comments, which clerk, if you will please, the ones that were emailed in, if you will please just submit them into our minutes. To those of you who are speaking, because I've got a fair volume, I'm going to give each of you 2 minutes to share. I'm going to ask that when we call you up, if you would be mindful of the clock there, as well as try not to duplicate what the person before you has said. And so if you've got something that would add to the body of that, I'm going to, since we had 2 rather than 1, Council, I'm planning on keeping these in our consent agenda, and then we'll just address all of these cards. So I guess we need to let's make a motion in a second, and then we'll allow the comment cards at that point. Or
Mayor,
is it protocol, city?
Mayor, I'm sorry.
Let me ask.
Mayor, if I may, it would be appropriate to get a motion on the table and then you can have the discussion.
Okay. Councilmember Orlando.
Mayor, I was just going to suggest, because there's other people in this audience for other business, that we just approve the agenda, make 4 and 5 an action and move on that way. But I mean, there are a lot of speakers here and I hate to tie
Yeah,
up
we
staff members as well as others, if that's okay with, you're the chair, but
Yeah. I'd be okay with that too, actually. I was kind of torn either way
Sure.
on this, and if we had allowed on one and not another, but yeah, we could do that. So
Let's-
let me move item number 4 and 5 to action. And then the consent agenda would exclude those 2. So at this point, it would then be appropriate to make a motion.
Mayor,
Councilmember Orlando.
thank you, Mayor. I move that we approve the city council regular meeting dated Thursday, October 14, 2021, with items 4 and 5 being pulled to action item.
I second that motion, Mayor.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for the approval of the consent agenda sans item 4 and 5. Comments, questions related? Okay, council, please vote.
Councilmember Rowe,
Yes.
motion carries unanimously.
All right. So to those of you, you're welcome to stay, or if your item has been addressed, you're welcome to do what you need to do. Next item on our agenda then is item number 4 as an action item, and I would entertain a motion on this to approve.
Mayor.
Councilmember Lopez.
So yes, I would approve or move for the approval of the introduction and tentative adoption of ordinance number 4991, establishing a Military and Veterans Affairs Commission. And if I may say so, again, this has been a long way in the works. I do want to say kudos and thanks to Bob Delpy for pushing this with me and keeping on me to to help move this along. It is a long time coming. And I believe that this is something that will be a great enhancement and a major contribution for the future of our city and our veterans.
Second.
Mayor.
All right, we have a motion and a second by Councilmember Harris. And before we vote on this, I do have a few speaker cards, and let me also read the comment cards. This is, well, you can't make a comment card and a speaker card, Robert Delp, unless there's 2 of you here. So nice try, brother. Second, Nicholas AM, okay. Okay, just, your comment is Chandler Veterans Commission. Yeah, okay, thank you, sir. The first, I'd like to call up in the order these presented to me, Dave Walter. If you'd please come up, you'll have 2 minutes. State your name and address for the record.
And Mayor,
Councilmember.
he should also mention his branch of service too.
Naughty such.
We'll see.
All right. Hi, everybody. Do I stay here? There?
Yeah, right there. State your
Anyway,
name and address for the record, please.
David Walser, 3166 East Palm Beach Drive, Chandler, 85249. Air Force, 9498. Woo! Hence the blue, right? I've lived in the community for a while, been active in the community for a while, and that is something that a lot of us have been working on, because everyone needs a voice in Chandler, including veterans. Veterans encompass a lot of different groups of people, everybody, and a lot of different issues. And there's a lot of stuff going on, especially with the last couple of months, what's happened worldwide and stuff like that. So I am excited to do whatever I can to help out with the Veterans Commission. I think it's a great idea, and I think it's about time, and I'm wicked psyched that we're talking about this and doing this shortly. Thank you.
And I apologize, Nick had also filled out a speaker card, so that I didn't see that there. Next is Bob Delpy.
Good evening. My name is Bob Delpy. I am a United States Air Force veteran. Go Blue. So I'm also a member of the Arizona Veterans Hall of Fame and class of 2017. I've seen many of the veterans groups throughout the valley, Tempe, Scottsdale, Peoria, Glendale, Phoenix, and now Gilbert all have veterans commissions or veterans committees. We do not. We should have one. We're a city of this size. We have at least 15,000 veterans living in the city. The veterans community, as they said, is very diverse and all sorts of challenges and issues, but also a lot of good. About 3 weeks ago, with the mayor's assistance, we put on an event for the city of Chandler on the Kabul 13, and we did it in 30 hours. That's the kind of work that you can get out of a fully functioning veterans community. I also have a son in the Air Force and a son in the Navy, and a son who's an Army veteran. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. And next, Nicholas Nick. Thank you, sir. Again, if you'd state your name and address or once you get up there, and you got 2 minutes, sir.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Nicholas Magallanes. I live in 1953 East Dana Way, Chandler, Arizona, 85225. Now, I'm excited to be a part of the Arizona Veterans Commission. Now, I'm a retired U.S. Marine. Unfortunately, the Navy's here, but they take us where we need to go. My wife is a retired Navy corpsman, and we know she wanted to be married to somebody on the varsity team, vice the JV team. Nonetheless, there's a lot going on right now with veterans. Now, a lot of veterans that are transitioning out, they don't really have a point of contact, somebody that can lead or guide them. You know, when you're transitioning out, TRS is very quick in checking the box. And a lot of Marines, veterans, sailors, soldiers, airmen, posties, Coast Guardsmen, excuse me, they come back. Sometimes they're clueless. So this commission will be an excellent opportunity to say, hey, give me a call. We'll work on this together. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Council, those are all of the speaker cards that before us, and I do want to thank Councilmember Harris for presenting some language that we're able to incorporate into this. Council comments before we vote on this?
Comment.
Well, we start this side and go all the way over.
Yeah,
Councilmember Harris.
first of all, I'm super excited as an Army veteran to see this veteran commission come forward. I think this is a step in the right direction for the city of Chandler and to move closer to diversity, equity, inclusion, because veterans need representation. And as a veteran, and as you may have heard, sometimes when we transition out of the military service into civilian life, it can be rather challenging. There's difficult things that we have to do on our own that we have to mentally climb above. You know, for instance, knowing when we can wake up on our own, okay? We can do things on our own, but we're so trained to do it a certain way. I am super excited because this veteran commission is just something that we can put forth to say, Chandler gets it. This is not checking the box for us. This is us getting it and moving into action. So I'm looking forward to what the veteran commission will do. I will be readily available to assist and be a part of that conversation. Let us not forget Post 35 underneath Commander Charlie Lang, Post 91 that's underneath Mike Simon. These individuals are the two posts within our district that house the majority of our veterans. But to say the least, they, even being a member of Post 35, there's still challenges. Veterans, recently there was a veteran whose trailer home burned completely down to the ground. And the veterans from Post 35 had to come together to help that veteran because of the fact that the benefits that we get every month is limited. So again, this is a fundamental thing that is not just checking the box, but this is doing the right thing and moving our veterans forward. And I'll just share this for my final comment. Many have heard my story of my father. My father was an Army veteran, and he actually served in Vietnam. My dad came back home, and at the age of 41, he passed away. When we had his body resumed, he passed away from Agent Orange. So there is a deep-seated history here, and I won't go into all that, but I wanted to make sure that this is heard, that the language is where it needs to be. I did share language that I wanted to be addressed on Monday, and that language has been now incorporated, and I feel very excited about what this is to become. And hoorah! Thank you.
Councilmember Lopez, additional comments?
So even though I did, again, microphone there. Even though I did make some preliminary comments, I see this establishment of the commission again as the proof that the city is willing and committed to work with our veterans. This commission is an advisory panel to the city council on all venues in all respects from the veterans environment or from the veterans community. And the intention here is that they work in conjunction with all of the existing veteran nonprofits out there. It is not, and I do want to put this out there, this is not in any way intended to replace and or displace any of the veteran activities and or resources that are out there. This is an enhancement. It's an ability for us in the city to say that we are committed to hearing the veterans' concerns and making sure, we have quite a few veterans on here now, but it hasn't always been that way. So this commission will always be in place in the future in order to ensure that those voices are heard to the city council. So thank you.
I am so honored tonight to put my yes on this and excited about it. I'm a daughter of a veteran. Might not have served in the U.S. Army, but also in Haiti. And it is a privilege, and I am very honored. And I'm thankful that those who have spent so many hours working on this tonight, we see it come to fruition. And that's the way it's supposed to work. When a city wants something, we go out there to the people of Chandler and we ask them, and they come back with a yes, and then we go forward with it. Thank you, Mayor, for the opportunity to vote tonight on this. Thank you.
Thank you,
Councilmember
Mayor.
Randall.
We have a lot of camaraderie and we tease each other as you probably heard a little bit up here earlier. But one thing about veterans, doesn't matter what branch of service you are, where you're from, what background, the only thing that matters is says United States. And that is on every one of our tags and our uniforms, but in U.S. Army, U.S. Air Force, United States. And that's what these guys and gals brought to us for years. My 30 years pales of what some of you guys did. I know, in fact, Reverend Hardy, Air Force guy too, so go blue. Thank you for all your service, and you got a lot of work ahead of you, so this is just the beginning, gentlemen and ladies. Thank you, Mayor.
Vice Mayor?
Thank you. Well, I'm honored to serve with the veterans here on council, and I'm also honored to call some of you my friends, and I'm excited about this commission that you are putting together, and I know that great things will come of it. Anybody that knows me knows that my heroes are not actors and actresses. They are veterans, especially World War II veterans, so this is a great step for the community, and I'm excited to see the good things that will come from it. Thank you.
I'll close out comments then. I do want to thank those of you who are veterans here in our audience, especially Bob Dalpy. Bob, you really were instrumental in making this happen, and I want to thank you for that. We started a conversation years ago, and I know the initial direction that you had talked about going didn't pair, but we're glad to do this, and this will be good. Just a little process after tonight. As soon as our clerk can get to it, if it's not ready already, there will be an opportunity for people who are interested to apply for this particular board. The board will be of 7 people, and so if you're interested, please do that, and then reach out to myself or a council member. Again, I don't know how many are going to apply, but there's ways certainly to serve, and we'll capture your name beyond those who are serving on these boards. So we want to not just look at 7 and say good luck to the rest of you another time. We'll certainly make sure that those who are on this board have the opportunity to capitalize on others who are interested with their expertise and interest. We'll be announcing this again when we dedicate the Veterans Memorial section of our park. And then I hope by December, council at the early December meeting, to bring back a slate to you for your approval. And probably in January, then this board will then start or have their first meeting. So again, thank you all. It's not just been Bob, there's been others who have been responsible for carrying this. And with that, council, why don't we vote?
Good.
Councilmember Rowe,
Yes.
motion carries unanimously.
Great. Thank you, City Clerk. Council, next action item is item number 5. Again, there's a number of speaker cards here. I'm just going to, in the order that they were presented to me, I'm going to read them. Before we do, I want to make some comments and then ask Josh to give a better definition of actually what we're talking about. You may have your understanding of what we're doing or what we're not doing, but I would like to clarify that before we have comments. I know this is of great interest to many of you, certainly DEI in our community, and this DEI assessment, the vendor selection process that we're on for approval for us tonight. Transparency in this process is going to be extremely important to council. We're going to welcome input from anyone who feels that they can benefit from the assessment. It's also important to council that we have selected an unbiased firm that will be able to effectively take in the various components of the assessment, and staff assured us of both. So I think this is a yes to our Human Relations Commission and their request of us when we did the survey over a year ago. And I look forward to getting the process started. But before we take comments again, I would like Josh, if you could take a few minutes and explain exactly what are we doing?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Appreciate the opportunity to provide some additional background information regarding this process. I wanted to make sure I didn't forget anything, so I actually wrote down some notes. So I'll read that for you if you would bear with me for a few moments. So as you were aware, Mayor, as you stated, this DEI study is a complex project. It has many components and many stakeholders. It also deals with topics that are very personal for many people, such as identity, faith, and culture. And that fact was not lost on our staff as we worked to identify the right consultant to help us through this process. I'm confident we found that consultant in CPS-HR. The need for the study, as you mentioned, Mayor, was first identified by the city's Human Relations Commission as part of their report to council last fall, following a community-wide survey about Chandler's diversity and inclusion initiatives. One of the primary recommendations from that survey was the need to perform an assessment of our DEI initiatives with a goal of creating a DEI roadmap or strategic plan to guide our activities and budget priorities in the future. A decision package for that assessment was included in this fiscal year's budget, which council unanimously approved back in June. Earlier this year, the council adopted an updated strategic framework and includes a brand statement to be a safe, diverse, equitable, and inclusive community. Council subsequently held several meetings where the subject of a non-discrimination policy was discussed, and after directing the city attorney to draft a non-discrimination resolution, council back in June directed staff to add that component to the scope of work for the DEI study that had been already talked about at that point to get more feedback from the community. And following your direction, that is one of the components that is in the scope of work for the consultant before you tonight. Because of the complexity and sensitivity of this assessment, staff sought an experienced consultant who would be objective and neutral in their work, who had a proven track record working with local governments and facilitating an inclusive public process, who had experience with both internal organizational DEI work as well as external public DEI programs, and who had the bandwidth and resources to address the multitude of tasks before them, including training, facilitation, strategic planning, surveying, and data analysis. In short, there are not a lot of consultants with DEI experience we found that possess all of those items, which helped us narrow the list and eventually land on CPS-HR as our recommendation. In the scope of work tonight, staff expects the consultant to begin as quickly as possible. The scope of work indicates a 180-day timeline to complete that, and we are expecting to present initial results to the HRC as well as council in spring of 22. That timing also works well with our budget. If there are budget recommendations, we'd also be able to include them at that time. The assessment in scope of work includes 4 phases, which begins with the creation of a DEI aspirational policy that will define what successful outcome of this study looks like, the internal and external communication strategy, and defining what the terms diversity, equity, and inclusion will mean for Chandler. The consultant will also conduct individual interviews with council members during this phase. The second phase is an extensive DEI community engagement process. All members of the community, Mayor, as you indicated, that desire to provide input into the process will be given an opportunity to do so at this time. Building upon the survey that the HRC conducted last year, an online survey will be opened and extensively promoted by the city, and a community focus group will be formed. A web page will also be created on the city's website where all documents from the external process will be posted to promote transparency. Similarly, the third phase of the project looks inward to the city's employees and will also include a statistically valid survey and focus groups. Between phases 2 and 3, the goal is to develop a DEI roadmap or strategic plan that will guide the city's activities in this area and set a clear path for how we will achieve the aspirations set forth in the council strategic framework. Throughout the process, and as specified in the fourth phase of the scope of work, communication and transparency will be essential. In many ways, this process can be thought of as a community dialogue about our shared values and vision for Chandler. It is not simply a survey on a non-discrimination policy or any one aspect of DEI, but rather a holistic look at how we build on our strengths as a city, improve in areas where we need to do better, and continue to create a community that is welcoming for all. So with that, Mayor, I'd be happy to answer any additional questions you may have about what is on your agenda tonight.
Council questions for City Manager?
Mayor, just a quick-
Councilmember Orlando?
Thank you, Mayor. So, yeah, I appreciate that, and obviously we all read this, but I'm still struggling with the word statistically analysis. What does that mean? I mean, let me just preface that. My original intention, at least my view of this, is we've received emails, we've received phone calls, we've received conversations from folks from both sides of the issue. Very positive. Many of them were very positive. Quite frankly, some of them were really uncivil and should not have been put in print. But be that aside, my concern was to reduce the polarization on this issue. And my concern was by doing a statistical poll, and that's a word I use several times, POLL versus survey, has a different connotation. So my concern is, how does this statistical analysis get us to the poll where it's statistically valid of where the Chandler residents are on these particular questions?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Orlando, thank you for that question. Certainly your request back in June to include a statistically valid survey method or poll was definitely in our mind as we looked for consultants that could do that kind of work. One of the unique aspects about CPSHR that we identified was not only did they have extensive experience in DEI work and had, in fact, an entire DEI division committed to these types of studies, but also a real statistically valid research and evaluation shop. And that was one of the unique skill sets they brought to the table. In terms of how the survey will be set up, that has not been defined yet. Our initial scope includes a statistically valid survey, both for internal with the organization as well as external to the community. We would be convening focus groups that I think would help us define what that looks like, specifically what questions we want to ask and how that would be communicated to the community. What I would want not to do is to simply rehash what was already done by the HRC. They did excellent work. That was promoted. We got some great data. We'd like to build upon that. And so I think we're open in terms of what that survey instrument looks like once the stakeholder groups have been formed. And we've gotten some input on what do we need to know to be able to create this roadmap for Chandler.
Okay, Mayor, thank you. My second question is, again, I understand, we're still working through that. And again, I'm looking forward to a valid study that we could actually say, yeah, 40% believe this, 55% believe that, 20, whatever those numbers are. That's the key right now, because I just don't want to get this any more polarized than what it's quite frankly become. I think we can work on this issue as a community here and get to an answer we all could agree upon, or at least most of us could agree upon. My second question is, how does the Human Relations Commission play in this role? Because that was another issue I remember myself as well as other council members brought up. How do they play in the role in this secondary function, primary function? I mean, it's a little concerning here because they're the ones, I guess, that brought some of these issues to the forefront.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Orlando, the HRC will play a critical role in this study. So they are mentioned several times in the scope of work as being, I would almost call it a steering committee, if you will. They are definitely one of the bodies that we'll be reporting out to on a regular basis with progress on this study, along with the City Council and other stakeholder groups that will be convened. But the HRC, as my understanding, is already working on forming a subcommittee that will work specifically with us on this task. And our staff will be working with them throughout to get guidance from them, give them information about how we're progressing. They are definitely baked into the scope of work for this plan.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Small question for now. Thank you.
Josh, I would add that I remember a couple issues of years gone past. I remember a zoning case where we had people from France weighing in on an issue here of a zoning case. And is there a way to ensure that the comments these are actually from Chandler residents, it's not that other opinions aren't valid, but we're forming and framing something for Chandler, not for New York City or Los Angeles or wherever else. Is there a way to do that?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, Council, I think a couple ways that we can do that. Certainly when we design the survey instrument, I think there are some ways we can work with them to limit that to being Chandler residents. And we can ask for some information that would identify them as Chandler local individuals. I also think that's part of where it's more than just a quantitative study that we're doing here. We're doing a qualitative analysis as well. And that's a very valid way to do research also. So there will be lots of stakeholder groups and focus groups and other ways that we outreach. And I think we can help by identifying who some of those key voices in Chandler. One of the things that I'm very proud of our staff, certainly in our diversity, equity, and inclusion office, is they have great relationships with the local community. They know who some of those key voices are, including some that maybe we don't hear from every day. And they know how to get some of that input out and put into this plan. So we will look to those relationships with local Chandler organizations and local Chandler individuals to help kind of put some context around the data that we get on this study.
Okay. Additional questions before we go to the floor?
Mayor.
Councilmember Harris.
Yes, I have a couple of questions for Josh. Just so my first question is that the company that you chose, share with us the decision making behind this particular company. I know you read it, but I want to help us understand what stood out among what you were vetting that said this is the right choice.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Harris. Again, as I stated earlier, it was very important to us to have an unbiased firm that really did not have any background in Chandler on this issue. It needed to be somebody that could look at all of the information holistically and impartially and be able to give us a fresh set of eyes on this issue, knowing, frankly, how much discussion there's already been about this in the community up until this point. I think we all know that to be a fact. We also then looked, working with our procurement office, at firms that had all the different skill sets we were going to need. There's a lot of different components to this study. It is not an easy task for any one company to do, and we were hoping to find one vendor that could do all those things. So not only a vendor that had extensive experience working with local government and had extensive experience working in the DEI space, but also ones that had the capability to facilitate public processes and convene public meetings and be able to navigate through that and do strategic planning work that would come from that. And again, back to Councilman Orlando's point, a group that also had experience doing statistically valid research and evaluation and survey instruments, and that is a unique skill set in and of itself. CPSHR, although there were several excellent proposals that were submitted, they rose to the top for several reasons. One, they had all of those things under one roof, that we could work with one consultant directly and not be having multiple sub-consultants or multiple contracts we're bringing you. Also because they were able to do the study in a timely fashion. We did not want to wait for this study to go on for much longer. And there were some of the consultants we talked to that were not able to begin the study on the time frame we were looking for. That was not the main driver. I want to make sure that's clear that this was a very high quality consultant proposal. They seemed to understand the goal of what council was trying to accomplish very, very well, and were able to start right away and get you recommendations on a timeline that they would make sense for our budget process.
Thank you. My next question is that this group, this consultant, we vote yes or whatever we decide to do tonight. There is a strong feeling that there were groups left out of that discussion. Have we went back to those groups and talked to those groups in terms of, because they're talking about, hey, we were left out of that conversation in terms of, putting forth this particular, going with this particular consultant. Have we went back to talk to those groups? Have we had additional conversation to help them understand more of why we chose this particular company?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Harris. I know I've had several phone calls and answered some questions like that. I'm sure a number of you have as well. I would extend that offer to anybody from here if we have not connected and there is a question about the procurement process or the unique nature of this firm. I know they have a website. You can view their entire DEI philosophy online if you'd like, and how they would approach the study. Everything that is in their scope of work is a public document, but if there are remaining questions about their qualifications or the process that we used, would be happy to answer those at any time. I think what's also important is to distinguish between the procurement process and the study itself. So typically the procurement process is something we do here among staff, and that's true for any study that you see for us. When we really start to include all that public input is part of the process. That's why we've called that out multiple times in the scope of work, is we want to hear from you, and you will absolutely have an opportunity to comment. It is certainly my goal personally that anyone who feels they have something to add to this, we find a way to get that input from them, and there should be nobody left, whatever the recommendations may be, and I don't know what they will be yet, there should be nobody left that says, I didn't have a chance to say what I wanted to say. We will be absolutely inclusive in that sense.
Also, Josh, thank you for that. In terms of the Human Relation Committee, you know, our commission, that's who actually, there was a recommendation before I even became council member that I was not even aware of, that there should be something like this put forth. And I later, you know, found through staff debriefings that there were, the commission had put forth this. And particularly, I'm particularly I'm singling them out because of the fact that it's important that the Human Relations Commission is very much involved in this process. They should not be taking a backseat. It shouldn't be a second choice. It shouldn't be a second thought, a third thought. Oh, and let's get back to them. The Human Relations Commission represents the interests of the council. They move, they operate in our interests. And I want to make sure that I make, making sure that we understand that when we have commissions, that commissions is uplifted when there is particular topics that we need to be uplifted on. And I just kind of want to make sure that we continue to reassure that we empower our commissions, that they have the power to make the recommendation, to do the job that we have commissioned them to do, and to make sure that they have the power. So in this process, it's very important that I want to make sure that they are empowered, they feel empowered, they know that their voice actually matter, and that voice is of the council's voice, and that they put forth that best effort. So I wanted to make sure that we put that there. I did get a chance to actually speak with this consultant. I'd taken time out to have a very lengthy conversation because this is a very important topic to me. And the time that I spent talking to the consultant, I felt very well about it. The reason why I say that is because of the fact that the young lady, her name is Regina Romeo. And she is actually a Black woman. And she's actually the one that created this strong, comprehensive, she's going to be taking the lead on this comprehensive scientific study. This will be not just evaluation of particularly of what the community feel on the outer, but after having deeper conversation, that it would also particularly look within the city of Chandler as well. So this conversation will not just be for the residents, but we will also be looking internally from the city of Chandler perspective and what our policies are. So it is very much encouraged that we look at that, and also the work that has already been done. They have worked with cities, just from conversation, they have worked with city in Colorado. I want to say they have over 100 different cities and municipalities bringing the community together. This should never be polarizing. This should be a sign of togetherness and hope, that we are able to come together as a community, address the needs that we have, because our needs are very diverse. We are a very diverse community. No one should be left out. And I do believe that as a leader that, many ask what's my opinion. I think when we all got elected, we decided to make our opinion second and everyone else's opinion first. And many of the council here is representing opinions and conversations of people that is first. And we need to appreciate that because that's what you all elect us to do. So my opinion here does not really matter as much as it is the opinion of everyone here. And so the things that I brought here, it was important. And I'll share this last thought. I want to just encourage everyone that's here that although you may feel that, you may have differences on the consultant and there's differences that you may feel. But when I was elected, and inaugurated in January 14th, our framework, our DNA statement for the city of Chandler did not include diversity, equity, and inclusion. But we fought, and together as a council, we got there. And now when you look at our strategic framework, you see diversity, equity, inclusion. Another thing is that we together as a council, before we had neighborhoods, cultural diversity department, we had that all underneath one department. Today, we have a department solely dedicated to diversity, equity, and inclusion. That's the work that your council and we have been doing. So now where we are today is the work that we have yet to do. We continue to put the city first and the needs first. This particular path that we will be going down will only ensure that your voices have been heard. This path will only ensure that you are being put first because of your participation and because of your diligence and your continuous oversight and the work that has already been done from the Human Relations Commission, in which we have commissioned to do this type of work, and to include various other leaders in the community. After the conversation, I felt comfortable with what this process is. Everyone will be represented. No one can say they've been left out, and the work will be put forth. The one thing that I will share, and I will charge Josh with this, is we have to make sure that language is right on. It needs to be spot on, and it needs to have input from the community and stakeholders and commissions and groups and things. It needs to be spot on. And I think that if we do that, there is a pathway to where we're trying to go. And I think the pathway with all you individuals in this room tonight, we start now. Together, we're not going to allow this community to fall by the wayside. But we're here because we're here to prove a point that we can do this together. It may not be faster than what others want, but that's just how government works. It's a little bit slower than everything else. If I was a CEO, be done. But we're going to go through this process together. But don't be discouraged. Don't lose hope, and don't lose faith in this process, because the process is what's going to birth this intangible feeling that we did something together. So with that being said, Mayor, thank you. And to everyone that's here that's going to share comments, we appreciate the comments. And when it's time for you to respond, not just now, but when everything is pulled together, we're going to need your voice anchored even louder than ever before. Thank you, Mayor.
All right. Before calling up Bias, I did take time to read all of the over 600 comments to the survey that you had issued, and they're all over the place in terms of the things being asked. Better communication processes was the number one thing. More celebratory events, and we've made strides on both of those, and I'm really looking forward to that being a guiding document with all of the 600 comments that were made as part of her scope, which I already know you're heading in that. So I do want to thank you. If any of you haven't the chance to be part of that survey, and certainly be part of what's going on. So with that, I'd like to start calling up our speakers.
Do we need to call for question first before we do discussion?
Are we what?
Do we have to do call for questions and move for the approval before speakers? We did that last time.
City Attorney?
Mayor, if I may, you can do a motion now and then still hear the speakers, or you can
Okay.
do it after the speakers.
Your choice, sir.
So I'll go, Mayor, if I may. So I will move for the approval of the professional service agreement number 4347 with Corporate Personnel Services, BBA CPS HR Consulting for a diversity, equity, and inclusion assessment.
I second that.
We have a motion and a second, and now we will take into comment our speaker cards. I'm going to just read these in the order again, as I did previously, the way that they were presented. First one up, Keisha Beach. In 2 minutes, state your name and address for the record. Please watch the clock, or the green light turns the yellow. You have 30 seconds left.
Sure. I'm Keisha Beach, 453 Pelican Drive. I'm speaking on behalf of myself and Base Arizona, a nonprofit here in Chandler. Regarding the hiring of CPS, in my organization, we take an issue with the process of selection. A few of the city's strategic goals are being a leader in trust and transparency, fostering a contemporary culture that embraces unity. And as the city government that bolsters on those goals, it has not lived up to those goals regarding the hiring process of this company or goals. To this point, we know that there was not a public RFP process for public review. The public did not know the criteria in making the selection until it was already made, nor were we consulted regarding the preferred scope of work. Over $26,000 alone is budgeted to internal staff conversations, part of task 3 of the scope of work. This HRC involvement looks like it's only just a DEI presentation to them. We were not made or aware of the 25 selected or the process of selection to participate in the focus group community engagement process. This process has been anything but transparent to this point, which does not elicit trust or unity with the greater community. That means a company with experience administering a poll that uses an unbiased, scientifically approved methodology designed to get a wide and accurate sample of Chandler residents and their views on this matter, not a city survey, as stated in the scope of work. There is a designated representative to plan and design the assessment and the audit protocol to include the data collection tools. So I'm going to ask that Mayor and Council tonight to not vote on this, to leave this open for more discussion to ensure that these reasonable requests are agreed upon and ensured.
Thank you, Keisha.
Mayor, quick question with staff. The question was how these 25 people are going to be selected.
Is that the question?
Do we have a pulse on that?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, Councilman Orlando, there is intended to be an application process by which we will be able to vet those members of that stakeholder. That's only for one phase of the project. That's the external, but it's intended to be a wide swath of Chandler, basically groups that are engaged in this type of work in Chandler today, in diversity, equity, inclusion work that represent organizations that do that type of work. But there will be an application process that anyone can participate in. It's not a pre-selected list as of today.
Okay, thank you.
Next up is Eduarda Schrader. Eduarda, again, 2 minutes. State your name and address for the record.
My name is Eduarda Schroeder, and I live at 3480 West Ross Drive. Thank you for agreeing to hire a diversity consultant. Diversity, equity, and inclusion describe policies and programs that help facilitate the representation and participation of diverse groups. A DEI consultant can help you to conduct an assessment of your entire organization, lay out a diversity strategic plan, and guide your strategies to help the city grow with an action plan. The consultant will do an extensive intake of all the stakeholders in Chandler to understand what concerns us all. Chandler Pride looks forward to engaging in that process and being part of a roadmap to success for the city of Chandler. Thank you.
Thank you, Eduarda. Next up, Tyler Conaway. Tyler, again, please state your name and address for the record.
Tyler Conaway, 4169 West Orchid Lane, Chandler, Arizona, 85226. Tonight I come to speak actually as the chair of the Human Relations Commission and really just take the opportunity to tell you how excited we are to see our recommendation come to life. As a chair, I want to also use the opportunity, given how much discussion there has been around the Human Relations Commission, to thank all my fellow commissioners for their very hard work in galvanizing this topic, as well as take the opportunity to thank the many community groups and the Chandler Chamber of Commerce for really helping to advance the discussion we're having. I'm very encouraged by the dialogue we've heard tonight about this being a community-wide engagement, as well as the opportunity to engage the public in a manner that focuses on Chandler residents. As we've seen already, probably in discussions, comments, a lot of outside interests outside of Chandler may have things to say. We know this is a national topic as we talk about LGBTQIA inclusion, non-discrimination, and how Chandler moves forward. But really in focusing that opportunity on Chandler residents, wanted to take the opportunity to also extend our services to council. As you know, your HRC, we stand here to work with the consultant, also to work with any member of council if they want education on any of our recommendations. Lastly, excuse me, we encourage mayor and council and the residents of Chandler to view the topics of the consultant as two distinct topics. We have first the HR audit, which is really a focus on the city of Chandler as a business, right? City of Chandler has many employees. Part of the recommendation was to have them focus internally on looking at the city of Chandler's practices, but also to make sure that the residents of Chandler engage with the Human Relations Commission and with their elected officials on this topic. Public policy is not something that resides exclusively within a consultant. It's something that's going to reside with all of us. So really take the opportunity to engage again with your commission, individual commission members, and with the members of council and mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Tyler. Yes,
Mayor,
Councilmember Harris.
I don't know if I can do this, but is it possible that we can name the commissioners that works on the Human Relations Commission at this time?
If there are commissioners here, why don't you please stand? We'll just go that direction.
Okay.
Thank you. Any of our Human Relations Commissions, so. Okay. And the others are available, and we can make that information available. I'm a former Human Relations Commissioner, the first chair for the first 4 years, and I certainly love the work that we continue to do. Next up, Crystal Blackwell. Crystal? Again, name and address, 2 minutes.
Hi, my name is Crystal Blackwell. My address is 6812 West Shannon Street, Chandler, Arizona, 85226. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and councilmen and councilwoman. Thank you for this opportunity. I am excited that we have moved the needle. We're at a place where we're looking at a consultant. My concern is the process of making an RFP, a request for proposal. RFPs are designed to eliminate bias, and that's an actual process that's in place to prevent systemic racism. And what happens when we overlook an RFP process, it doesn't allow women-owned businesses, minority-owned businesses, an even playing field. And that really lines under equity. And we're talking about diversity, inclusion, equity. So my concern is not, why was that not part of the process? I do understand and respect that having an organization outside of the state may make sense, but there's hundreds of organizations that did not get an opportunity to really bid for a quote to really help and support what we're trying to do here in Chandler. So thank you for listening. I would appreciate if we could pause. I think it's a misstep. I would like to wrap my comment up with our values in our city, which is commitment, communication, diversity, innovation, integrity, personal responsibility, respect, and teamwork. I embody that. A lot of you folks do. To me, I think that's something we need to stand on and hold ourselves accountable and pause and ask ourselves, was this the right process in selecting a consultant? Thank you.
Thank you. Josh, could you, that does that. So 2 people have raised the process. How would people have known about this, and for groups that do this, how did we advertise?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, members of council, I do want to clarify that I know the term RFP has been thrown out quite a bit, and an RFP is not the only method that we use for public procurement here. We have a lot of different methods of public procurement at the city. Depends on the unique nature of the task that's been presented to us. So the goal of public procurement at the end of the day is to get the best value on the goods or services for the taxpayer. That is how we approach each and every one of these, and it's a different process depending on what's being asked of us. What we actually did was looked with our procurement office at, I think it was actually initially 18 different firms that seemed to have the skill sets we were looking for. Because it was such a unique and unusual study, there really was not a large group of consultants available that we could identify. From there, we actually reached out to the top 8 that we narrowed down, got proposals that came back from 4 of them. That then went down to 2 that we interviewed through a virtual interview process, and then made the selection or recommendation to you. We had several firms that were very qualified that could have done a great job with this. It was not that this was the only firm from day one at all, but this was an unusual study with a lot of parts to it, and we wanted to make sure we had it narrowed down to a group that we thought could actually achieve what you were looking for, knowing there was a lot of discussion and debate about this topic.
But we also had, this conversation really started the previous fiscal year, in which we also announced that we were going to be doing this, which then also made it available for inquiries or
That's correct.
for more following information. So that's been months before the process, right? Before we actually went
That's
out?
correct, Mayor. This actually came onto your radar last fall when the HRC made that recommendation, and then that was factored in through all-day budget brief. You heard about this process as well, and that was rolled into the budget that you adopted back in June.
Yeah. I wouldn't go back to the fall. I don't think, because I think that was May, but I think we agreed to this really back in May or June to that process. So it's been 4 months before we went out. Okay.
Mayor,
Councilmember.
yeah, so we didn't put this out to RFP. I think that's what I'm hearing tonight, is that we did not put it to a traditional RFP where it goes to our website and we actually looked at 18 firms, and we sent it only out that way, which the concern is today is that the public didn't get an opportunity to even bid on it because it was done via privately, in a sense.
Again, Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Harris, that is correct. It was not an RFP process, so I'll go ahead and answer the question that way. Again, not all of the items you see are RFP processes. We have lots of different types of procurements that council receives. Depends on the unique nature of what's being asked of us and what's being asked to deliver. In this case, we worked with our procurement office to identify vendors that we'd work with that had experience doing this kind of work, and then contacted them. So these would be firms that had already made their services available to us, or that we knew were already engaged in this type of work. Part of that was we wanted it to be an expedient process. We wanted to get the information to you quickly to start working on this. We also knew that there wasn't going to be a long list of people that could do all the things you were asking for in this process as well. So we tried to get this to you as quickly as possible, and I think it was a fair process. But to answer your question, it was not a traditional RFP, and that's not done for every procurement we do here at the city.
I'm perplexed right now because I didn't know that. I didn't know that part, and I'll just openly say it. I did not know that. I'm concerned that I voted on something that I was not made aware that it was not put to a public RFP process, and I already voted on it.
You have not voted on anything
I
yet.
haven't voted yet.
We haven't voted.
Oh, we haven't voted. Okay. All right. I think that's what the conversation we're hearing right now is, that it was sent out, and not to say that my opinion would change about the company after having the conversation, but I definitely have some reserve knowing that it wasn't put out traditionally where people can do it themselves. Thank you.
Council, if you would mind, I would really like to give people the opportunity to speak. So if I could continue, and then we can reserve our comments for afterwards, please. Next up is Angel Encinas. Mr. Encinas. State your name and address, and you have 2 minutes.
All right, good evening, Council and Mayor. I'm Angel Encinas. I live at 230 South Dakota Street, Chandler, Arizona, 85225. I'm an active and civically engaged resident, small business owner, and local realtor. I've grown up in the heart of downtown Chandler, and over the past 3 decades, I've seen our city change dramatically. I've lived, worked, and studied within the community and with its residents, so I'm as local as they come here in Chandler. I'm a proud member of the LGBT and Latino communities. And the introduction of the NDO gave me a sense of pride that my hometown was making strides to make me feel more comfortable at home. The direction of this process now has somewhat dampened that pride, but I hold strong to the continued opportunity that our city will make the right decision. I've been fortunate enough never to have experienced an overt racist attack in Chandler personally in my lifetime. However, there are still some spaces in Chandler where I still don't feel completely free or safe to be myself without any repercussions based on my race or sexuality. And while I know there are no such thing as completely safe spaces anywhere in life, and that we cannot, as a government, dictate people's beliefs, it is the role of our government to protect its residents, all of its residents. Building trust among any minority community involves the powers that be, to engage with and invite afflicted communities into the decision-making process, particularly on issues like the one that brings us here tonight. It does not appear that this has happened in the process as of yet. It is of critical importance that these decisions from here on out involve residents from those communities which the NDO is aimed to protect. And moreover, our residents as a whole are polled accurately and representatively. To ensure an unbiased and accurate sample of our residents and their views on this matter, we must use a scientific proven method. For more transparency, I propose and would like to see an independent citizen review committee to
Angel,
take place.
can you wrap up, please?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Independent community going forward to ensure that we're getting the most accurate, professional, and unbiased information and data possible.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Rick Human. And is it Rick and Dr. Crawford together or separate? I wasn't quite sure. But,
We're going to do a tag team.
tag team. All right.
So we'd like all 4 minutes, please. So.
Well, let's start with Rick Human. State your name and address, and we'll go from there.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Rick Human, 4310 West Dublin Street, Chandler, Arizona. I come to here tonight as the incoming chair of the Chandler Chamber of Commerce and also the chair of the Coalition for Diversity within the chamber. We represent over 1,500 companies and over 170,000 employees throughout the city of Chandler. We started this process back in 2017 in terms of diversity and inclusion. And it's super important for us that this is a very transparent kind of method. I've heard different things tonight, and I appreciate Councilmember Orlando's conversation on having a true, transparent poll, not a survey. A survey that's open to the world is very hard to control in terms of what information you're going to get. Chandler's been a leader in the Valley for a lot of different things, and we now are a follower. And you know where I stand and where the chamber stands on part of this as well. So I really just want to reiterate that I understand there's a 20 to 25 person group that's going to be, you have to now apply as an application. The chamber represents a lot of people, and we expect as the chamber to be part of this process. And we urge that, I don't know if we need to fill out an application, but we have a very large group, and Dr. Crawford's going to talk about it here in a second, but that's one of our biggest things. We want this thing to be transparent. We want it to be open. We want people to really understand that their voices are being heard, but it's being scientifically done and not just a random survey. So,
Why don't we reset the clock for Dr. Crawford? Give him 2 minutes, please.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I am Dr. William Crawford, and I reside at 1252 North McKimmey Avenue, 85226. My family and I have lived in the city of Chandler for over 23 years, and I am proud to represent the Chandler Chamber of Commerce's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee as one of the co-chairs. The Chamber's DE&I committee is composed of community leaders committed to diversity education, and we work tirelessly to promote inclusion and equity within Chandler businesses. According to a recent Gallup poll, more than 70% of Arizonans agree that combating discrimination on the basis of race, religion, gender, and sexual orientation is a necessary action in creating an equitable Arizona for everyone. The diversity and inclusion consultant being considered tonight will have an opportunity to conduct an unbiased scientific study. The process undertaken by the consultant must be transparent, open to public input,
and result in clear, actionable items directly related to the consultant's findings. This is an issue that touches all Chandler residents, and it is the expectations of leaders in this community that a citizen panel coordinates with this diversity consultant every step of the way. As a diversity education leader in our community, it is vitally important that citizens knowledgeable in DE&I be involved in this consultation and that their voices are heard and valued. Mayor and Council, thank you for engaging this process. The Chamber's DE&I committee looks forward to having a seat at the table during the consultation.
Thank you. Our last speaker card is from Joseph Yang. Joseph, 2 minutes. State your name and address for the record, please.
Joseph Yang, 4909 West Joshua Boulevard, Chandler, AZ, 85226. Right? Okay, I get the zip code wrong always. All right. Hello, Mayor and Council. I want to say thank you for this opportunity to come and speak about this agenda item. My main concern is that I've never heard about this survey or about this company, and that nothing's been put out on the city website or on any social channel about the company. I share the same concerns, and I'm not going to go into the details because we've already had about 3 or 4 people express those same concerns. My other main concern is that we talk about all this transparency, yet we haven't had any transparency up until now. And I love the phrase, history will repeat itself if we don't learn from it. So how are we planning on giving transparency now when we've never had transparency before that? My other main concern is the wording in there of non-discrimination ordinance. However, it was non-discrimination something else. And so that's my other main concern, is about transparency. What is in that wording that is not being given to the public or whatever it may be? I'm just asking for a little more transparency, as there's a lot of detrimental things in that verbiage. So I'm just asking for more transparency, as well as here to state that Chandler has been, is, and always will be a diverse city, as well as a diverse community. Not only that, but the city has always welcomed our diversity and our culture and our community with open arms. So I'm a little confused as to why there's this sudden push and this need where, there's concern of diversity, where, as far as I've seen, Chandler's doors are always open for the community and the culture. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, that concludes the speakers who have presented tonight. There is a motion and a second. Any comments before we vote?
Mayor, I want to ask Kelly if I would like to. I want to amend the motion. I want to amend the motion so it can go out to regular RFP, so that way that can be so it can go to the public website. How do I make that motion because I would like the process to go out to the public website for RFP before we agree on this company. I would like it to be public for everyone to bid on, and then versus voting yes on this particular contract. I'm trying to amend it because I want it to go to the regular public so that way they can see it before we do it.
If I may, Mayor, Councilmember Orlando.
Harris. It's okay.
I apologize.
It's tired. It's late. It's late.
I'm so sorry about that.
We've been at it all day.
I do apologize. Obviously, anyway. So the motion is to approve the contract, and really, what you're proposing is a substitute motion. It's a motion. It's not an amended motion. My best recommendation, unless the mover and the second want to withdraw their motion, is to allow the vote to go forward on that motion. And then if that fails, you can propose your motion, because it really is not a motion that could be amended as you're proposing, because it's a different process.
So basically, whoever put forth the motion can withdraw their motion right now, and then I can put forth the motion.
That's not what she said.
Well, help me out, y'all. You know what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get it together. Tell me the language so I can say it.
Her recommendation is to go ahead with the vote, and if it fails, make a substitute motion.
Okay, got it. Mayor. I'm going to make a substitute motion.
Well, that's not in order right now.
Are you going to
Um,
talk first? or-
Councilmember Orlando.
Just process, just so we're clear here. You could also make a motion to table this as well.
There's a motion and a second on the
So per,
table. though.
per Robert's rules, I
Motion
mean,
and a
the way the
second,
rules
so
work
you
is that
can't
there's a
just
motion and a
table it.
second, we had our discussion, unless the discussion
Your
is,
procedures say,
proceeds.
your procedures say we could table it as part of an action item.
Correct, but there is a motion already made in a second, so that needs to be voted on. No additional motion could be made, an amendment could be made, but there could, the motion has to be voted on. It was already moved and seconded, so unless it passes or fails, then that dictates what could happen next.
So if it fails.
It fails, then
it-
another.
Councilmember Harris,
motion.
please wait to be recognized. We're still conversing.
Mayor,
Um, Councilmember Orlando, are you done?
No, you need to, I'm reading this as being in motion to table. You could temporarily bypass it, not debatable, shall preclude all amendments and subject of under consideration. This subject is under consideration.
Mayor, if I may.
City Attorney.
Councilmember Orlando. Um, Normally, a motion to table is done before a motion for
Understand.
action. And you could make a motion to table, that is not in the normal procedure because you do have a motion pending on the table with a second.
I'm just telling you, according to policy and procedures, you could table this. But I'm not gonna.
If I may, you're correct, but that's a motion to table, but that's not the motion that has been made and
Understand.
seconded. Correct.
Other comments before we vote?
Cons-
Councilmember Ellis.
Thank you, Mayor. Really appreciate everything that I heard this evening. But the fact is that I'm hearing two sides of the story at this point. There is certain people that are in favor of moving forward with this motion as we had just made it. And there are those who have a problem with the way that the RFP was presented, or if not, the way that it was presented. The fact of the matter is, the question that I have for you, City Manager, is this something that we just want to get a firm in Chandler for, or we want to send this thing nationwide? I mean, at this point, do we want to just go back and send this only for firms that we are finding in Chandler? Because the need that we have right now, based on your recommendation and the things that you have asked, and I have asked, and any one of us have asked, is very sophisticated. And so do we have such a firm here in Chandler that we can put this out only for Chandler businesses, only for Chandler, or do we send it out nationwide at this point and then have it come back? I need to know so that I can properly vote on this matter, whether it's current vote or the second vote that we are about to make.
City Manager.
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Ellis, one of our primary goals in identifying a consultant for you, again, was somebody who did not have any connection to the issue at hand. We wanted to make sure this was truly an unbiased study and that it was a firm that did not have any history with this issue in Chandler. I think you've seen just from the comments tonight, there's a lot of different feelings about this issue. There's no shortage of opinions and there's a lot of interest in this matter, which is great. That's what we want to come out during the study. So we tried to identify a firm, and that absolutely was one of our goals, that could be a completely neutral and impartial reviewer of that information and help us facilitate a process moving forward. You are correct. There are a lot of moving parts to this study, and we only identified very few firms that could truly do all of those things. And that's why the recommendation you have tonight.
So based on what you just explained to me, Manager, is the fact that at this point, I think as a council or myself personally, I will ask that if we are going to change this, we send it nationwide, not just Chandler, because we do have a set of skills that we are looking for, and it needs to be presented in order for us to make a decision. Thank you, Mayor.
Additional comments before we vote?
Mayor, yes, this is.
Councilmember Harris.
Thank you, Mayor. I think that this is a part of the process. This is what we're doing before the public. This is not a personal feeling. I think as a leader, I don't have no opinion in this matter. It's not about what OD feels. It's about what the public wants. If we fail to miss a step, or we feel that the public feels like there was a step that was missed, although it was done in good faith, because I do believe it was done in good faith, If they feel that way, then it's not about how we feel, it's about how they feel. If this is gonna remedy us having further conversation and we want to put it out for everyone to do it, we may still end up with the same company, but we are just following a process with a step that really has nothing to do with our personal feelings, because we were elected to have no feelings, but to represent the feelings of others, to advocate for others is for us to put forward. So I'm looking forward that we will be able to remedy this in terms of good faith to our community, that we're going to do this the right way. And we want you to know through our vote and through our action tonight, it will be done in good faith. Thank you, Mayor.
Mayor. I'm sorry.
If I
Actually,
may,
Councilmember
you know,
Lopez.
I mean, one, I'm going to make a call for question and make the statement that, look, I understand the concerns, but we also, as a council said, we wanted to have this done quickly. We've already been told, again, a lot of us have been told that this has been already a year. The HRC made this recommendation. We'd like to move forward. We go back to RFPs. That is the decision of the council. That's why I put that's why I moved and moved for this. So I'd like to say calls for question, and it's time to vote.
Okay, council call for the question means that conversation ceases and we will now vote. Is that correct, City Attorney? All right. Council, please vote.
Councilmember Rowe,
Yes.
motion carries by a majority. Councilmember Harris and Councilmember Ellis dissenting.
All right. Thank you. That concludes our action items tonight. I do have two speaker cards or several speaker cards for unscheduled business. Everything through. Unscheduled public appearances. Again, I will read these in the orders that they've been presented to me. Nancy McBurns. Is there a Nancy here? No? Okay. Our next speaker card is Brad French. Is that correct? Sorry if I said your name, last name wrong. Is there a Brad here? All right, Brad, sticking with others, you have 2 minutes. Please state your name and address for the record and your topic.
Thank you, sir. My name is Brad Finch. I live at 1870 East Ross Drive, Chandler, 85225. I come to you this evening because I'd like to get your help to address safety concerns at the Chandler Airport. Recently, in the last 2 weeks, we've had a mid-air collision at Chandler Airport. Roughly 60 days ago, we had an incident where a Bonanza went off the end of the runway. The response time right now to get crash fire rescue to an incident at the airport is scheduled at 12 minutes. 12 minutes with an aircraft accident is atrocious. The Bonanza that went off the end of the runway roughly 60 days ago, there are four people involved, and they would have been burnt to death, with the exception of two gentlemen I'd like to acknowledge by the City Council, Alan Hartman and Matt Bletch. These two gentlemen were working in their hangar on the southwest side of the airport, and with complete disregard for their own lives, they went down and pulled 4 people from that aircraft. There was a fireball that was up over 100 feet in the air. The fire department, when they arrived, could not get through the gates because the gates at the airport were inoperable. They put out the fire from outside the fence line. If these two gentlemen hadn't rescued those 4 people in that aircraft, they would have burned to death. As it was, they were just burned slightly, and even at that, it's too much. We need better response time for the fire department. The fire department does not do any training at the airport. They have a schedule for right now for 1 crew, 1, to come out to the airport to do any training. There's been no coordination with the control tower. The control tower has issues with radios to and from the fire department. They do not communicate on the same frequencies with the traffic. The fire department does not train on the airport. Therefore, their idea of finding out where the problem is to show up to the airport and look for the flames.
Thank you, sir.
I'm asking for the city to help fix this problem. Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you. And council, this is unscheduled public appearances, meaning that we cannot engage with the speakers.
I understand, Mayor, but may I ask a question of our city manager,
You
please?
certainly may.
Thank you. City
Councilmember
manager,
Ellis.
as we have, I know that our chief is in, also sitting back there and everything. Can you please tell me what is the response time at this current time for our first responders to the airport?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Ellis, I don't have that information in front of me, but we could certainly get that to you very quickly.
Please do. And then second, I would like to know about the last two accidents that happened at the airport. It was my understanding that both of them were things that were outside of the city's control and the things that we were involved in. If you could please make that also public and also bring that back to us so that we can better understand and the public also can better understand how these things happen. There's never any reason why we should talk about people dying and not do something about it. But at this point, I would like to make sure that you and the staff that are involved at the airport is well aware and are doing everything possible to make sure that a priority number one is safety for us, because I always say it, safety is number one. First, right? Safety is first. So if I could please get that information, I would really appreciate it. Thank you.
Happy to do that. Thank you.
Our second unscheduled public appearance is from Marvin Wessel. Mr. Wessel? Again, you state your name and address, and you have 2 minutes, sir.
Name's Marvin Wessel, 100 South Stellar Parkway. I was hoping for 3, but that's the way it is tonight. So I've been involved in a crash or a fire at the airport, and my plane was a total loss because of the inability of the airport to have operating gates for the Chandler Fire Department to put my fire out. Well, the crash that happened that Brad spoke about, the Monday after that crash, the Chandler Fire Department Battalion Chief held a meeting with the airport personnel and asked what's going on. Inoperable gates was the answer, and it was pretty obvious that the Chandler Fire Department doesn't know how to respond to emergencies at the airport. This has been brought up to Joshua Wright several times. This council approved a $100 million airport plan with $0 for improved safety features, even though several people asked for safety features at the only airport users meeting that we had with Joshua Wright. We asked him why there were no why there was a fire station in the $100 million plan or safety gates. His answer was, we don't have to. A fire captain from the Chandler Fire Department spoke out at that meeting. He was suspended for speaking out at that meeting. He retired from the Chandler Fire Department because he didn't want to work in a hostile work environment anymore. So I have to ask, is this council going to wait until they have blood on their hands before they actually do something about the safety conditions at this airport? I have a petition I'd like to leave with the council. Yeah.
To the clerk, please.
Mayor?
Councilmember Ellis?
Thank you. As again, I will address the city manager, and even at this time, our city lawyer. I will want to be involved into understanding what had happened and how we have come to a report like this and what is the other side of the story. So it is important that the report be brought back so that the public is well aware of what's going on and what had happened at either one of those instances, and the fact that it was presented right now that the city and our fire department is not trained and is not well prepared to respond to those kinds of things at what's happening at the airport. Again, I'm going to reiterate the fact that if we are running an airport and it's not safe for our residents, we need to do something about it immediately. And if it's safe, and it is so, it needs to be said. Thank you, Mayor.
Mayor. Yeah, city manager. Just one other thing, as we start this budget cycle, I know we've addressed this issue in the past. Let's take a hard look at how we can have a more robust fire detail or organization by the airport. I think it's important at this time that we take a second look at this. We've had several incidents, at least in the last year and a half, of gates not being open, of firing. Maybe there's something, a better solution for us to have closer or on-presence firefighting capabilities. Thank you.
We had one more comment card, not a speaker card, and I will just read their card from Jennifer Gohrier. What's going on with plans to expand data centers in the Price Corridor, and will the neighborhoods be kept informed? Will they have say? And I'll leave this with the staff that you can address the inquirer at this point. Next on our agenda tonight are current events. I've got two. Others might have some as well. First, I'd like to just talk about my excitement for we just opened up a ribbon cutting with the Chandler Public Library Makery, and Councilmember Ellis delivered some excellent comments. The Makery is a state-of-the-art space where the community can turn an idea into reality, develop a product, or start a business. This is a great addition to makerspace resources we already have at ASU Chandler Innovation Center. The Makery is unique and it's suited for all ages and levels of makers outside of the traditional fabrication equipment and technology. The space features a studio that is soundproof multimedia space built for creating audio and video content. So big thank you to the community services and library staff for making this space possible and offering the opportunities for our residents. There's going to be more information, far more information to reserve the Makery Studio. You can visit the library's website. And my second announcement has to do with this weekend coming up. We have our annual GAIN event. GAIN stands for Getting Arizonans Involved in Neighborhoods. It's a statewide annual event designed to encourage neighborhood watch programs and bring together communities through Chandler to fight against criminal activity. Council, you're welcome and invited to head out and visit registered neighborhoods this Saturday for Chandler's GAIN Day event. We've got information that's been shared with us. If you are interested, please RSVP. We encourage all of our community to participate in their neighborhood's events, and we look forward to see other ways that we can keep our community safe. Councilmember Harris.
No comments at this time. Thank you.
Councilmember Lopez.
I just want to wish a belated birthday to my fellow sailors, bubbleheads, and Airedales out there. Yesterday was the Navy's 246th birthday. So delivering Marines to wherever they needed to be for 246 years. So it's a good thing they haven't learned how to drive yet. So thank you.
Ouch. Vice Mayor.
Marines left.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to recognize Chandler's Finest, who is in Washington, D.C. tonight to escort family members of fallen officers at a candlelight vigil in Washington, D.C. We are very proud of the work that they do, and we want to remember those that have fallen in the line of duty. As a matter of fact, there have been a handful, there have been a couple that we've lost here in the last week or two. And I just want to recognize these folks and keep them in your prayers tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Ellis.
Thank you, Mayor. The City of Chandler Housing and Redevelopment has just reopened the application. It is a process where we have people put in applications for housing. The deadline to submit a pre-application has been extended an additional week. So we encourage you to please go on the website and try to fill out the application if you would like to put your name on there for housing. This is the time to do it, and we want you to do it quickly. Thank you so much.
And Councilmember Lando.
Thank you, Mayor. Those of you still left in the audience in the discussion we had earlier, message received loud and clear. Maybe the process wasn't as robust as it should have been, but I think it's more important in my mind, being engaged here, that it's what we do to go forward. Let us keep track of this process. Let it be transparent. I heard the steering committee, HRC will act as a steering committee. I think that is transparent as we could get it to go. I wanted to just encourage everyone to continue working along this issue. And we just have to keep moving forward on this issue. Thank you, Mayor.
City Manager, comments, sir.
Nothing tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, council. With that, that concludes our meeting.